US President Obama is accused of continuing Bush-era torture policies in a new report by the American Civil Liberties Union. It evaluates the White House's record in terms of transparency and accountability for the last 18 months since Obama took office. Let's talk about this story tonight. Michael Macleod-Ball's the counsel of the union. He's on the line from Washington, D.C. tonight. Thanks for being with us. This report describes, quote, the new normal established by Obama during his presidency. What do you mean by that? Put some meat on the bones for us.
Well, President Obama came into office with a promise of great hope. And in fact, in his early days, he took some very important steps to try to turn back the tide of the aggregation of executive branch authority in the Bush administration. But there have been some very big exceptions to that initial hope. And before we get too far into this administration, we're hoping that the Obama administration will take stock of what it's done and what it hasn't done before the Bush abuses have been allowed to exist for so long that they become the new normal.
So what's been the sticking point here? Let's wind the clock back. It was just on his second day of office, wasn't it? Barack Obama banned torture and harsh interrogation techniques. Why has it gone wrong then? Why haven't his efforts gone further to fulfill his promise of change?
Well, I think I'm not the right person to ask that question of, but you're right. In those early days, there were some very big steps that were taken. The executive order banning torture, I think, was an important step in the right direction. But at the same time, subsequently, the administration took no steps to try to hold those in the Bush administration accountable for the actions that generated the torture in the first place. And so what we see throughout this administration are a series of positive steps, but then not quite achieving the result that was promised during the election.
Okay, well, let's broaden the picture a bit. As you said, how effective have counter-terrorism actions been under the auspices of President Obama over the last 18 months? The more general picture.
Well, there have certainly been no major terrorist attacks, although there have been some attempts, of course. The point is whether the administration is being true to the American ideals, being true to this notion that there are individual rights that must be respected in the United States. And in our view, the administration could be doing more in that regard.
Yeah, what about those civil liberties for Americans under Obama? Has he ushered in greater freedoms over the last 18 months?
Well, there have been some positive steps. The Freedom of Information Act, the administration has taken some good steps to sort of reverse the default position of the administration in terms of releasing information about government activity to the public. On the other hand, it has fallen short by not releasing everything it could have released about some of these executive branch abuses. And so, for example, we've seen the administration release memos that were drafted by legal authorities during the Bush administration that that purported to describe the authority to engage in torture. On the other hand, the administration has not released the photos that were the evidence of that torture and would have demonstrated just how comprehensive those abuses had been.
And do you think this report could be just a little too premature? Do you think it could be a little too hard on the new man on the block right now? President Obama indicated that these changes you're talking about will be made during the full course of his presidency. He never really said it was going to be overnight, did he?
Well, you know, the timing is that's a very it's a legitimate question. But we're 18 months into a 4-year term right now. And once we get to a certain point, then there's a certain amount of electioneering and politics that takes over. What we wanted to do was to go on record with a status report to try to acknowledge some of the good things that this administration has done, as well as hold their feet to the fire on some of the areas where they've fallen short, before it's too late for this administration to change course and really commit to getting done those changes and committing to the rule of law the way the President did during his election campaign.
All right, Michael Macleod-Ball, ACLU Chief Legislative and Policy Counsel, thanks for being with us tonight.